people that were joining us were individual consultants, while in these countries we mainly have like framework type contracts, and we couldn't really talk to the authorities or the bigger firms taking care of this. We also noticed, whilst also talking in the Netherlands, that not everybody's on the same page. What is the openBIM? What are we talking about when we say IFC? And they were like, yeah, then what's the difference with a good template on PNIDs? This was a discussion we had. So we see that it is important that something like PCERT Foundation or the other general introductions are super important to bring to the table. Information management, very often you see that there are technical people in the room who know how to solve this. But as soon as they touch the first stuff, then that is invasive to everybody else. And that cannot be related to the bigger picture. Importance of 19650. And also something we learned with the set of workshops we had was that everybody was waiting for somebody else to have something that is relevant enough to contribute to. And everybody was looking at this from another level. Some people wanted to have one piece of script. Some people wanted to have an international code, a thick book. And that is why going forward with those, we thought, okay, let's focus, let's promote this professional certification. That indeed is something that in Hoskoning we are trying to do. It's not well, we are not providing training as our business. We just apply it to our own employees at this moment, sometimes to the partners. But this is something that we brought as a proposal, as a recommendation. Continue doing good stuff. What Alex was showing, what was presented, Anouk is in the room, she was presenting in Valencia. These are having value because once you go first to a high director, they usually would say either we know it already or why is it valuable? Or does it work even? Like they would have these proposals every day. You do need to demonstrate that it actually works and adds value. Also, maybe not to forget to focus on 4.3. We hear a lot about the new scheme or extensions or whatever, but it's important. 4.3, there was a lot in there already. I remember talking with Jim in Montreal, saying, why don't we start doing something with the process items, with the process objects? And it was like, yeah, but how much of that does already exist? And now we have 4.3, so we think that implementation lags behind. ISO 19650, especially next year there would be a new generation, but even the current one, after almost 5 years, it has still more to provide and do. And we had this nice experience of the ISO 19650 game, that it was one very successful thing to help people relate openBIM to the other things, to the bigger picture. And we actually thought with Alex together that maybe the next rounds of workshops could be done in the same way. We just use the same board. That could help us to pinpoint where does the problem lay, whom would they affect, and then for whom would be the consequences. Actually, that is one of the stages of this game, if you have done it. That's at the end, that people get to put a risk card somewhere on the board, and then they need to discuss mitigation and consequences based on that. Last, I think we wanted to set a point to look at, a light at the end of the tunnel, and a very good reason not to miss Porto, of course. We thought that we have got enough. We have got also enough ideas and learned lessons to make sure that we can define a solid deliverable. And that to be presented, discussed, and hopefully kickstarted in Porto. Alex, you want to close?
No, that is probably what we want to try to do. Please join us, help us. We had a good breakfast lunch, coffee already to talk about this, but we're trying to look to get this further. So we reaching out to the network here. If you have anyone who's doing drinking water sewage treatment, let them reach out to us and convince them to help us make this working domain, this strategic group work, and start implementing it into the bSDD community. That's just really our biggest call here. Help. Okay.
Questions, suggestions, remarks?
What is the scope here? Is it water and sewer drainage as well, or?
So, it can perfectly be. So you see that, for example, it also depends on the sector. This is partly covered by the maritime as well. So, like in the ports and waterways phase 2, for example, open channels were mentioned. Now we are looking at another use cases in there. If you look, for example, at the profiles of the companies like Waternet or us, we do actually work on them. If they would be in scope or not, it depends on the interested parties that are joining. We are not rejecting something. If that has direct connection to water, we can look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, because in Norway we have a lot of water and sewer projects, and we are missing some in the schema. We need a schema extension, not so large, but we need some extra there, and also well-defined spatial breakdown structure proposals, etc., etc. So there are something lacking there.
I can imagine. This is also a discussion that is also relevant for the other domains. I think in general, before concluding the extension, it comes like the general process, running an analysis, mapping the processes, identify the exchanges, and then run a gap analysis. And it could perfectly be that the existing gap could be resolved with a use case.
Yeah, use case. And in Waternet as well, we have the climate adaptive assets, we call them. Yes, it's also, hey, how can they're new. We don't have any asset ontology. We don't have the breakdown structures. So we're thinking about that as well. And of course, yes, it would be nice if we can put it in somewhere in the IFC schema. Yeah.
And also one small thing, that as a domain, we can always conclude that further analysis is required, and we can go through with that. When we discuss extension to the core standards or a new module or a new version, that requires more involvement of the bildingSMART International. So to run, we need to take the first step, walk in, and then we can go on. Yeah, of course.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm very happy that I have found somebody talking about water facilities here, because this is actually a problem that I think almost every water facility company here in Germany is facing. So first of all, thank you so much. The second point is, as I understood, the cooperation was locally in Netherlands first. Then, is there any cooperation with any German company or Sweco?
There is a very good collaboration. There's even a Dutch the white paper we made is a translation of the German version. There was a lot of work done already by the German chapter.
Okay, that's actually very nice, because
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to gather them internationally, so from all the different chapters to combine here the forces to make it work. And the Germans are one step ahead.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that, because as I said, like, we are trying to do that locally, and the company that I'm working in also when it comes to water facilities, and I think we have also some structure or some kind of processes that we can also share with you, and I think also you have very valuable things that you can also share with us.
Please just drop us an email. We will add you to the board. You can see the other material that's already in there, the white paper that actually we translated from the Germans and we addressed to in our call for participation, but also the other things. Yeah, please. And Mirbek, you can always ask him, because he's connected to everybody. Wait.
No questions?
We have still 1-2 minutes, yeah.
Are we not stuck?
I know there's a process going on with the water authorities in Norway trying to standardize on using IFC and things like that. I don't know if you're connected with that process at all. No. Are you, Jan Erik?
No, but we should come together.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
No question, no? And we know that the Hong Kong Chinese, the water company, the award, hopefully the award winner, will also try to help us and join. Yeah.
I guess it's. Thank you. I guess the works is enormous. Okay, so water company are actually the asset intensive organization or company, and actually we have a wide variety of the asset class. Okay, like treatment works, pumping station, reservoir, the tunnels, and then the large water mains, small water mains, and then probably, I don't know how many kilometers you have in Germany. In Hong Kong, we have 8,400 kilometers. Actually, in Hong Kong, we have 6 water. What is 6 water? Is we have potable water, okay? We have seawater for flushing. We have desalination. We have reclaimed water, okay? And then we have grey water, okay? So I guess we have a lot of different asset types. So I guess we can contribute. Well, I mean, everybody here in this room has been using the equipment for a long time. Well, our organization, we have a 160 years history. So we have all the. I think we should have most of the attributes required for the bSDD. I guess the hard thing is the unification and standardization. I guess is if we can actually pull together and then share, then to sort of like make it work, and then sort of like we can have the the bSDD for the water industry. So so that would be good. It's not impossible, because like about 15 years ago, I went to Australia training their asset management, and indeed I went to Netherlands, KWR, and Wittens for training for the wearable heat pumps and their hydraulics, informatics. So I guess it's asset management is quite important. But the first thing we start when I was learning the asset management is the asset register. Okay, the asset register is very important. So to get it right, I guess it's we will share. I mean today we are talking about the digital passport. It will be a good start, and then we actually normally the asset register will be the job of the contractor, or you see the consultant design. The contractor will actually purchase the equipment. So and then the approval processes begin, and then they need to feed back all the information again into the either BIM model through the COBE and then to the AMIS. Actually, it shouldn't be so painful if you have the digital passport. Okay.
1 minute. Any other questions or comments or? No? Then we're 1 minute early.
Thank you very much, Alex and Emad. Mirbek, would you like to come up and start your presentation?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Well, now we're going to have another half hour of the same. This time it's about electricity rather than water, because it's the same issue. And Mirbek has been doing a lot of work. I'm on the infra domain steering committee, and Mirbek came to us some months ago with this proposal, and we thought, and actually he did a presentation for us, and we thought this is great, but then it sat on the agenda week after week after week, and finally I said, look, we've got to stop sort of talking about this. Let's just do it. And so we contacted Mirbek and said, we're going to make this happen. So it's now being developed as a project proposal for buildingSMART, and Mirbek's going to talk about what he's doing. I'm not an expert in the field, but I can see the value of what you're doing. So let's go.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's really great that we managed to reach this level. Emad and Alex showed the same process that we are going through. So we had in the past activity proposal, and well, the journey started in Germany. No, not in Germany. First initiator was Richard Kelly. He started initiating power domain. It's called power domain, or at least power room. That was the first idea, and started in Paris. And we thought we will support it, of course. And we also established our national working group in Germany, and worked on a white paper within the same way like we did for water management. And so as a basis, we thought we'll cover entire life cycle from generation until distribution and usage and so on. Meanwhile, we have electrical room. Now it's called electrical domain, BSI electrical domain. That's, of course, they cover some other aspects like medium and low voltage. We have maritime domain now. Maritime domain has two sub cases or sub topics that they would like to: offshore wind energy. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really interesting cases where we come across and should collaborate. Of course, we limit our scope. So we thought like we'll mainly focus on transmission and distribution. So it means a high voltage and medium voltage. That's what we are aiming at. We run several workshops, meetings, summit sessions. First summit session was in Oslo, maybe confusing, in Montreal. And we had a session in Marrakesh. We had the possibility to collect all sticky notes, ideas, requirements from domain experts, from companies. We had the extra meeting in Frankfurt in presence. So we had the chance to organize together with BSI and all stakeholders. So this was our journey. As you can see, activity proposal was there. It was endorsed by infrastructure domain, and we have now detailed project proposal. I would like to mention Jeffrey Ouellette. He had a really strong power in the past that helped us to shape the activity proposal. Together with him, we spent several nights, let's say, because of time difference, of course. So we had a chance to work on that, and I would like to really thank him for his invaluable support so far. And yeah, now with Jim's support, we had a detailed project proposal. It's of course under a review of infrastructure domain. We will work on in 3 phases. As soon as it's approved, we will start shaping the content. As you can see, phase 1 covers some work packages, industry white paper, whatever. And hope we can simply use the same way like we did with Waterman, simply translate it. Or we will simply collect further content requirements from domain experts and work on the further things. Of course, like you all said, we need to go through classification. Taxonomy means we all want to have assets be properly classified. That's really important. If you want to cover some use case, doesn't matter which use case, you need content, right? You need to know what is that thing called. Okay, that's a lamp. But if you go like what was proposed for use case substation outdoor lighting, you still need to cover all that elements, transformers, switch gears, whatever. And they have properties as well. So you need to cover them. So that's the idea of taxonomy. And let's go through use cases and maybe some provide some documentation. And if we find something that is missing, then of course we can propose to technical team, BSI technical team, let's extend that, let's improve the schema, and that's vital. So there are deliverables, as you can see, small demo, taxonomy and bSDD. That was 3 months. It's done, luckily. So sample idea, sample bSDD, it's also done. You will see it now. Taxonomy, sample taxonomy, it's also published as just an example, as a motivation for all of you, so you can go through details later on. So in detail, we will go through many things. We need to check what we have so far. Schema starting from already from 2x3. IFC 2x3, so it means, there are many companies still using that schema. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We will check, and we can, for those who are still struggling using that, feel free. We can support that as well. IC4 for sure, IC 4.3. That's most important thing. And we can go through further details. Let's say phase 1 done. Exaggerating, we still have to work on industry paper. And as you can see, this is a time screen. By the way, it was shared in, within the detailed proposal. You have to click the links. If you're not having access, please let us know. So you can go through all that details. When we'll be reaching, so we, according to calculations, 3 years. It's for whole thing, of course. We need some time. So we right on time. We can work harder, and maybe we'll reach our goal at the end of that deadline. Okay, and what we're gonna use for that? I'm talking about taxonomy. It's classical way. So we need to know that bSDD exists. So as a service, it's great service that from buildingSMART, and you can use that for everything. For using as a dictionary to find some kind of entities that you're not familiar if you're completely new to IFC world, or use it as a content for your ideas creation. That's what was an interesting thing, because you create as a single source of truth. Everyone says IFC. No, in that case in bSDD, because you have IFC dictionary in bSDD, by the way, and you can use that for creation of ideas. You can use it for creation of any, let's say, objects or like building components. You can assign properties, classes, classifications, everything through bSDD APIs. What's a taxonomy? No, I don't have to explain you, but what's the most important, we are not aiming just to create taxonomy. That's very important that you map that taxonomy with IFC. It doesn't bring me so a big asset when I simply create a taxonomy, and it will be simply mapped with nothing. Let's say automatically you do that in bSDD. You apply it, let's say you're using Revit. You assign it. It will be, of course, assigned as a classification. It will export, but Revit by default will think, okay, you didn't find, you couldn't find the IFC proper IFC entity, and it will by default export IFC building element proxy. So we are ending up again in proxy. So that's most important. Do job, check what could match, what could you find in the IFC schema. Example. Today will be example of high voltage pylon or a high voltage mast. So you can see that you can cover that as well in IFC schema. It's just a assembly, IFC element assembly. So you can see in the pylon, insulator, conductor segments, cabling. They also have, of course, the systems as well. You can have a system for generation, have a system for electricity in general. Maybe as a transmission is missing, but generation, distribution, you'll find it as well. So as you can see, you have a substation. So you can, a substation, you have a transformer and so on. So that's all possible. Just need to check it properly. And we did some job examples of creating bSDD example, so that it will be motivation that we are not talking about any fantasies, but it's real world that you can use in real things. And how it will look like, I think you skip this part and go dive deeper, because it's just a screenshot from next actually presentation. So we'll go through underground cabling. As you can see, the cables are also available. So we're not just this transmission distribution means we will not just cover high voltage or overhead lines, but also underground lines. This is easy to cover, since we have entities for that as well. Oh, sorry, entities for that as well. Even for security, what they call no-go areas. That's the most important thing in infrastructure, no-go areas. We had a presentation yesterday in the jury meeting for an area, and they are using geometries, but not many people know that geometry that you're using for no-go areas, there is a specific entity called IFC spatial zone, and it has specific types like security, construction, transportation. So it means for transportation roads, you can of course use preserves that area for transportation, and like security, if it's no-go area, dangerous zone, high voltage, so you can put that as a security, and that's geometrically as well visible, so you can use that. So that's these brown areas. I can see it's explicitly, I said, class root warning tape. That's just a membrane, right? But for other security zone, let's say for areas where you don't have to dig with your excavator, so you have to be careful as soon as you meet there, or with other let's say piping works, and you have to know that you will be reaching something. Okay, that's what now we were currently facing it. That's what we tried to cover. And as I said, we have some milestones. Feel free, just check this detailed project plan. I will simply now come to this point, the call for participation. That's not the end of my presentation, by the way. Call for presentation that you need to commit, and you're all welcome, especially domain experts companies. And if you want to join, check this Miro board. We have also Miro board. It's open. Please don't delay it. It's you have editor rights. It means leave your comments, leave your contacts, especially there is a table there for contacts. That's what we would love to have, your contacts, but we don't delete anything. That's the most important. And add your wish requirements and so on. Thank you. That's first. And now we go dive deeper. We have, I guess, 10 minutes, right? Yeah, that's great. Now we can go through examples. And I will start like, let's try capture the same thing. I like this example. It's a well-known video from Norwegian, and we had this, what openBIM does for you. It explains you all that standards and services from buildingSMART. In simple example, the most important example, or I would like to focus on this part, broken window. Why broken window? We have broken transformers, maybe broken shields somewhere on the overhead and next to the overhead lines that should be exchanged. What you will be using for that? BCF. There's a task, there's an issue telling that the topic open. Let's say electrician should change wiring somewhere. It's important, and we don't have electricity. That's most important. Of course, you need to know properties. You have to know classes, maybe specifications, which you find that in bSDD classifications. Probably you all have IFC models, most likely. Doesn't matter which schema, you find that. You can use that for that reason. If you, since most of the cases it's a public area, so it will be a tendering. Some utility companies will be asked to do repairs and so on. You need to define your requirements. Those requirements you'll be covering with IDS, right? It means we go to next step. That's how it looks like. The openBIM workflow. You start with capturing that requirements. You're a public company, it doesn't matter, organization. Who will be covering that requirements? You need to define your requirements. If you have specific ones, don't then reinvent the wheel or avoid that. Simply check, does IFC schema support your needs? Probably yes. If something is missing, that's what we're aiming to fill the gap, right? The gap of that classes and properties. That's all I have seen. Let's say we're missing something. We do. in some cases. We checked bSDD, we did our job, and oh, we missed some properties, some classes, but we're still able to go one step up to schema and saying, instead of going in a place where you cannot map that, you take one step on the IFC hierarchy and go upper. That was, by the way, a suggestion of Leon van Berlo, so definitely thank you for that. So you go, if you don't find something, then we can just create additional one by adding classes in bSDD, mapping them with IFC, probable IFC, and then maybe leave some comments. As you can see, this is just example of 10 classes. Hierarchically, there is a hierarchy between them. We have just 2 properties, just to show how it works in bSDD. Ground clearance, which is in the electricity world, it's clear the clearance in itself between our hotlines and ground. So lacing types or bracing types, let's say. And as you can see, this is a small example. Transmission tower. It has many names. As you can see, we have a chance to map that. So the user domain expert will be able to find it in bSDD by looking for pylon, or let's say tower, or electricity pylon. So you have synonyms, you can put them. You can use this relation types. That relation types, as you can see in bSDD, exist. You can create assembly of a whole thing until I can be part of something big, or I have some bigger part, let's say anti-climbing guard, conductors, foundation, bracing unit, insulators, all that thing that hang on me as the whole thing. I'm a tower, right? I'm a high voltage tower, so I consist from different things that I can definitely cover in bSDD. Not only bSDD, you will see it that you can also cover it in by using bSDD to mapping that. It means I use materials as well. I can assign material made of steel, and I belong to a network. So it means I can do everything in the bSDD. And as you can see, the relations, it's bidirectional. It says, okay, we are part of something, and I also belong to someone. So it means you have that relation bSDD is part of. So it means foundation is part of also tower. The same way, harmonization of dictionaries, that's the most important thing again for the infrastructure domain, but all other domains as well. So we have parallel dictionaries, A-team, A-class, Uni-class, and some other dictionaries. So you have a chance to say transmission tower is the same thing at A-team. They all have dictionaries, probably, Uni-class, and so on. So you do say this is exactly the same thing or similar. So you have a chance to do that. Harmonization, that's our next task. As soon as we have dictionary, at least as a draft, we should go to electrical domain, go to maritime domain, saying what classes you have. Can we check what properties you have? Maybe have different or similar properties. So we can simply harmonize them, take one instead of creating 3 of the same things. So now example of ground clearance. It's an electrical wall. There is definitely parallel things. As you can see, IFC has electrical clearance as well. Wow. But electrical companies, they definitely want to have ground clearance, not electrical clearance. So that's a point. We can find a compromise saying, let's call it the electrical compromise, but then put the relation to IFC property saying you can match even not compare or harmonize not only classes, but the properties as well, saying that's the same property we have in IFC. Okay, what does it mean to use bSDD for properties? Let's say companies using predefined types you have, and you don't want to give up flexibility to your clients so that they will be simply using something and entering something that you will not find anymore. If you know the values that are really known, like single warn, double warn, there's a bracing type, K warn, K bracing, then put them. It's limited. You know that it's maximum 10, then put them. So you will save time for that engineer. Spacer. Well, that's tricky one. You know what spacer is? You know the overhead lines, right? High voltage. It goes in some cases it can be one wire going through, or let's say 3 or 4 with a distance. So you need to keep them away in the distance. So it's a spacer. I cracked my mind, dug so deep that in the schema to find out what would be that spacer in IFC schema. That was really hard job. We have 2 options. That's why I added 2 options. As you can see, IFC cable fitting. It's possible. Okay, it's cable fitting after all, but it's not fitting. It's just keeping. And IFC discrete accessibility with a predefined type cable arranger. You know the cable arranger. We have some cable arrangers here. It doesn't matter. The most important that cable arranger here that we have probably should meet our requirement of also of a high voltage and medium voltage. Means simply use that class, add additional property sets related to your demand. So that's one idea. Of course, if there'll be another chance somewhere when IFC 5 will be developed, maybe we can suggest, let's make it a proper type for proper IFC entity, right? That's an addition node for IFC cable fitting. Maybe the addition may have additional predefined type for spacer. That was a message. Yes, 5 minutes. Good. So now what we're gonna do? Well, let's say we finished our harmonization works with all domains. We have now IDS. As an example, I had a chance to participate at the BIM Day event, national event of buildingSMART Czech Republic. And use example. Let's create a simply high voltage power line project going through Europe from France, let's say, and we stopped in Prague, delivering electricity to Prague, and we need that pilot. So the requirement, actually along the way, will be different. So in Germany, will be requirements different. The Prague, let's say in Czech Republic, they have different requirements. Still, of course, they will be still using ISO standards and so on. But still, let's say we have local requirement. In that mission tower should have entity, right? IFC entity element assembly with predefined type pylon. And we have, by the way, dictionary classification. As you can see, it's also a transmission tower. The client wanted to have uniclass. That's also possible. You can't do, by the way, in bSDD, you can assign on one entity several classifications at the same time. So that was a second. As you can see, I packed that in IDS. So we can say uniclass, according to uniclass, it will be coded as EN 703018. That's my transmission tower, according to uniclass. So you can go there. The name of the tower should be, I cannot read that properly, Vysokonapotiva. So it's like a Russian Vysokonapotiva linia and so on, so on. So you can have even the values, as you can see, the ground clearance should be minimum 7 meters. So that's, let's say, this high voltage, even more actually. So you have a place where lacing, you can use that predefined type, or PNM, and saying here your listed values, the double warn, definitely double warn. Why double warn? Because specific, maybe a specific lacing type, and it should be made of steel. You come to the site, you need to place it somewhere. The contractor, or the client tells you that high voltage pylon should stay there. That's a place where we arrange. So you have to put your coordination. So it should be georeferenced. It should have address. So this like example address next to the Prague. So that was a line going through France, Germany, and ended in Czech Republic, right? So how it looks like in IDS. That's example of footing, just same way. Footing, it should be load bearing, by the way. That's most important. Footing of that huge transmission tower, it also has foundation, so it should have foundation. It's even a wrong type here. It's not pad footing, it should be pile footing. And we have ideas in human and human readable and machine readable way. We want that the whole thing should be mapped properly, and we should avoid proxies. That's what we do now. We create content, single source of truth. You remember I told you about single source of truth coming from bSDD. So that's the same way. You can have two ways of creating. I'm using simply bSDD as bSDD. And since it's mapped with IFC, you can use the same content. You can use the same property sets from IFC while you're using your domain-specific properties. In that case, you see lacing type double warrant like it was required in IDEAS. You have ground clearance was minimum 7. We have 20 just for fun. And we have other properties coming up from IFC schema because we want to have a repair occurrence related to operation phase. That's a most interesting thing you have already in IFC schema, operation related property sets. So please keep in mind, you can add them directly and you will make a life of that company who is dealing with operation easier, the TSO companies and all other energy companies. So it means we are coming to the point where you have QC, QA. So it means you have ideas. You add that. Hello? Yes. you can run ideas as that what was used for requirements now for validation, and machine recognize that you have some problems with your foundation or maybe with your bracing isolators and cables, telling that you can check that proper design again and send your models properly. So that was a message that you can simply do with the help of BCF, BIM collaboration format. And as soon as you give your message to a company dealing with modeling and designing, and they will definitely eliminate that error and send all that information in the proper way. So I was on time, right?
Absolutely. Thank
Great.
you, Mirbek.
Thank you for and of course join us. Check that detailed project proposal. Call for participation that you have seen, and all chapters, organizations interested in an energy, electrical, high voltage and medium voltage. Feel free to join us. And we are looking for maritime and of course to collaborate with the electrical domain from bSDD International as well. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mirbek. And Marin, if you'd like to come up and start your presentation.
Yeah. All right. Yes. Hi, everyone. A wonderful introduction by first the guys from the water utilities and then by Mirbek showing how bSDD evolves from the, let's say, specifying side. Now we're going to take a step from the other side and have a look how it can be applied in actual software. So I'm going to first talk a little bit about me, about the company, then just a short overview of what bSDD is in case not everyone is familiar. Then we're going to actually see how it can be integrated into a small tool that was developed as a helper tool for our actual tool. And then in the end, we're going to do a small practical showcase just to see how it all fits together. And finally, a bit of conclusions, future work, and hopefully with some Q&A. Right, about me, mechanical engineering master, also an additional degree in BIM, more on the data side. And now I work for some years at Neonex as a BIM and product specialist, helping implement our tool called Fundament in different workflows for different clients. Also, then again, there comes the data side, processing, etc., a little bit of scripting. But for this presentation, it's important that I'm not a developer. So you can see that non-developers can do quite some work with bSDD, even if they know what they want. About Neonex,
We are data oriented. We believe that data is the key for more sustainable built environment. We are actually an information management consultancy based in Belgium, in Antwerp, around 25 people. We specialize in critical assets, and also we don't only specialize, let's say, in BIM, it's systems engineering quite a lot, so providing services using tools around systems engineering to help clients with some, let's say, parts of their information management that BIM maybe is lacking, maybe they're not using BIM that well, but we all know that construction is still a world outside BIM. Hopefully it will change, but we need something to glue these things together, so systems engineering and BIM. And that's why we developed our software platform called Fundament, which is a digital asset register. It enables better insights through, let's say, flexible, configurable management of your data and then aggregation of data from different sources. Okay, as I said, Fundament can structure and classify your data according to, let's say, any information model that you provide. In this case, it will come from bSDD. It can combine project data according to these structures. It also has some built-in features like rule engine, inheritance, instantiation of properties, etc. And once the data is combined, it can be edited in the user interface, and then it can be exported back to the IFC or it's a graph database, so we can configure it, let's say, fairly easily to adapt. We're quite linked data oriented, for those of you that are not scared of it. We are from that part where we think everything should have a URI, we should have a unique identifier on the web, and we're quite happy that bSDD is then going in this direction. Again, so data can come from any source. This is where bSDD is. It can also be ontology managers, laces, etc. That gives a structure. Then project-specific data, 3D models, documents, etc. can come in. And then we export it for different use cases. So what's relevant, we don't export the whole sets of data. If not necessary, we configure it to export subsets for carbon, for bill of quantities, etc. So if you don't want to give all of your data to somebody because they can misuse it, you can only give a subset. Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick step back and see what the issues is. So all of you know how a construction project looks like. We have some constraints, some requirements, some budgeting, etc., stakeholders, blah, blah, blah. Then we use some tools, BIM tools, CAD tools that we focus on here, but also systems engineering, simulation, project management to help us build better, to deliver solution within time and on budget. The issue is with all of these tools, we all use at least this many tools, right? And if you have this many tools, if you want to have your data in one place, you would need to have all of these interfaces. And I've seen companies, let's say fairly big companies, that try to struggle and connect 30 tools all in their single place, one-to-one, and then you have 200 interfaces, and then yeah, it doesn't work. You don't know what the data is exchanged. You need to map it in each data exchange, and simply you need to have 20 people just managing the technology behind it, not even the semantics. It simply doesn't work. So what we would need is move from this, ideally, to something like this, where you would have a central repository, maybe bSDD, where you know what data semantically means, what relations, etc. And then once you have this central repository, the one in the middle, each application should plug in, and then it's fairly easy and much less work to manage that data, let alone that when you manage the central place, your changes are managed in quite a better way. Yeah, so we move on from this to this, how? By applying standards. Several EU standards, I won't go into that too much, but we try to apply EN standards, ISO standards, and also Inlink Data W3C standards according to EU layers of interoperability. There's like 4 layers, legal and organizational. It's impossible to tackle on this level, but what we can do is fight the semantics and fight the technical layer. And that way, organizational layer follows And once your organizational layer is set up legal, when the lawyers come, that's when we get some proper traction, right? Because then you work with contracts, which is the final obstacle. All right. So indeed, semantics and technical is what bSDD can help with. I'll run through what bSDD is, just for the case some of you don't know. It's a service provided by buildingSMART. It's a platform we can host, let's say, any kind of terms. It's not a project hosting data. It's a ontology or data dictionary, so project independent data hosting mechanism. And it provides a standardized workflow that can then guarantee data quality, data consistency. It can share understanding, provide meanings, distribute standards, and capture agreements of the built environment data. What it can actually host: project definitions, meaning project independent data to be reused across projects. It can host semantics, meaning what each object means, taxonomy, specializations, etc., properties, and some relationships. Okay, so how does it look like? Mirbek explained it quite well. Let's say we have two tools. You have a 3D modeling tool at the top. You have an information requirement tool at the bottom. If they plug in to bSDD, they share single source of truth. They speak the same language. And a model can have 200 walls, and each wall in this model should have a height property. That's what we specify it in information requirements. And all of you know that the above is the IFC, the one below is IDS, right? If we compare it, we get a BCF, nice workflow that was quite extensively described in just the previous presentation. All right, but no matter how hard we try, still you have some things that are very hard to manage in the IFC schema, in the very existence of the schema, but also more importantly, maybe in software, right? Verification plans, quite often seen in systems engineering, system breakdown structures, work breakdown structures. All of it exists. It's the reality of a construction project, but it's not reality of a single software tool, right? Then you have the derived use cases, carbon footprints, etc. What do we do with that? Do we push it all to the IFC? Sometimes you can, but then it's a lot of work in between. It's a lot of overhead that maybe you want to avoid. What we can do is take the central piece, which is our digital asset register. Our digital asset register can take project definitions from bSDD. You can configure it the way you want to, meaning rules, different annotations, rule engine that takes care of how data can fit together. So your toilet can be in your room, but your room definitely won't be in your toilet, right? And stuff like that. And then you can display it visually nicely to reduce and lower the gap for technical solutions for the domain experts. It's simply fairly easy to use. And then if you give a tool that's easy to use to your old engineer, they're gonna like to use it. If you give them Revit with everything open, I don't know. And that way, when we push it all together, we can interrelate all of the different data. This is the showcase, but it can be 20 different sources of data, right? It can be, again, system engineering tools, etc. And other APIs that are hosted somewhere online. Basically, you choose your data source. This is the part in the API that we're gonna try and see how it works now. Okay, so quite a lot of talk, but what we're gonna try to do now is to fetch data from bSDD, build a small tool around it so we can prepare the data for fundament and push bSDD data inside. All right, about the bSDD data model, it's fairly simple. An organization has some dictionaries, these have some classes, class properties, relations, etc. You have this available in bSDD. There is also a test API. I didn't use quite extensively APIs before trying to integrate with this, and I got it right on the first try, so don't be afraid of it. You can just go through it, see what you can fetch, etc. So what we're gonna do, So you have the master data or project definitions manager. That's a small tool that we're going to see later. It works in tandem with bSDD API, and we use it to fetch and process bSDD dictionaries. Once we choose the dictionary that we want, we can take all the classes in. Once we choose all the classes, we can choose a subset of properties. Then we choose the, let's say, the subset. We assign the units, because one of the drawbacks of the IFC schema is they recommend they don't have explicit assignment of properties, which can sometimes be annoying if you don't have that explicitly in bSDD. Then you need to manually click what you want. Do you want your height in meters, millimeters, etc. We're going to export to a Excel file. That's one means of importing the data to our tool. And then we're going to upload it to Fundament. Okay, we're going to have these three: dictionaries, classes, class properties. Again, they exist in the test API. Now I'm going to run through some code. Don't be afraid of it. These are the responses. We have all we need here. So we're going to take the code, the URI, the name, and the version, and use it in our app. Quite a lot of it will stay in the back, but we hide it from the user, right? The same goes for classes. So we have the taxonomy. By having the children, we have the URIs, descriptions, etc. Everything can be taken in from bSDD API. And for properties, quite similar. All the relevant data exists in the API. So we just send calls the way we want to fetch the data back, and then try to integrate. Okay, so we got here. The green ones is, let's say, what we got. We got an API call for dictionaries. We got an API call for the classes. We got an API call for the properties. Now a bit of Python magic will happen. AI helps a little bit. I'm the functional guy that says, I want you to do this, do a bit of correcting. But I don't have the time to do this in a code all along. So my message is, I think even if you're not complete developers, you can do quite a lot in helping your developers understanding what to build. Okay, and what we go in is something that is an issue now, as we just tried it, but now it doesn't work. Okay, luckily this one does. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna skip the videos that don't work, and I'm gonna show what I have, right? So we have a small tool. This is the interface, again, built as a helping tool. We can activate the toggle to fetch the dictionaries. That sends the first API call and displays us the bar here that allows us to choose from the complete set of bSDD dictionaries. So we have like 200 dictionaries there, everything that's open online. I click on one that I want, and here we get the IFC. We can fetch any, but IFC is familiar, so I figured maybe it's best to use the IFC. When we fetch that, we get complete list of the IFC data. So complete classes, right? Everything I want, and then I can select a subset of data. That's very important because we don't want the whole schema inside. It's too much. We're going to get lost. Our non-technical users will go crazy if I load the whole subset. So I just chose some walls. We can choose complete set of, including specializations. We can only choose that one. And then we can choose properties. Clicking on properties leads us to a long list of properties of IFC properties. We can choose the subsets, what we want. So here we have like five properties that I chose for this showcase, and then we can assign the units to it. So a little bit was lost with the videos, but basically we chose our subset from bSDD that we'll use as the source of truth. We can also fetch units. That's what you'll see here. So I can easily say that I want all the units fetched from bSDD, so I want my length to be in millimeters. That's the drawback now. If your dictionary has explicit unit assignment, you can fetch it automatically. This one needs to be assigned. Same for the height. And then once that's done, we can simply save the whole subset. So now we chose our classes, we chose our properties, a small subset, assign the units, and we have everything ready for fundament. Okay. And then there's the practical application. So as I said, we've done this part. And now we'll go to here to uploading the project definitions to fundament. Okay, this one works. So now you see our actual product that our developers are busy building, so I cannot do that. We have different means of importing these project definitions. A most generic one is by just uploading an Excel according to our template. So what the helping tool did is fetch from bSDD and just produce an Excel. I'll upload that Excel now. It gets processed, and then we can go directly in the web app and choose and show the subset that we've had. So all the walls that were selected from bSDD, they are here. They are existing along with the properties that we've set. And this is where actually the power of the web app comes. So we can set, for example, if we want template values on conceptual. So these are still project definitions. These are not actual objects. And we can see as soon as you find a wall, make sure its external property is true, set to true as a Boolean. Make sure its acoustic rating is 45 decibels or something like that, whatever, right? Okay, and what we can do now when we have this project data set up, project definitions, we know how to structure our data, our actual data coming from the project. So what we can do is first process BIM models. So we have a process that can take any kind of BIM models, IFC, NWD, Revits, etc. Here, let's focus on IFC. And we have a small, we have a viewer, and we have a classifier, and that's the power. If you have a model, if you have it in Revit, you can use the bSDD plugin for Revit and say, okay, in the IFC, this is a wall. And then I don't need to assign all the properties in Revit, right? I don't need to go on each individual step by step. I can define it in fundament. And the only thing I do in Revit or in IFC, this is a wall. And once it gets processed, so this is then, again, a conceptual level. Once it gets processed, it just shows me all the elements that I classified in the processing as walls. So I click on a single wall, and it leads me, okay, this is this specific wall right here. And it inherited all the properties. So it immediately has an acoustic rating that I said before. It immediately has all the empty values, so the user knows what to fill. So you don't need to guess, do I need to fill this, do I need to fill that? You agree that if something's empty, in different stages, it needs to be filled. And then we have relations. So we have the taxonomy relations, so we don't only have the walls, we have also something that's a subclass of wall. Okay, I forgot to say that we can also change the properties on individuals, and we also have these enumerations, the allowed values that Mirbek showed. So user can choose from a subset of, let's say, allowed values, so they cannot just fill anything. And this way, a user can really easily fill the data. You remove the obstacles of technical different tooling from them. You can also classify to subclasses. This solid wall can then have a different value on these properties, etc. And the good thing is we can build these trees the way you see them with different relations with any combination. So if you have a system breakdown, if you have vectors, roles, etc., you can display this. And a simple example is you have requirements, let's say textual requirements that you extracted from the documents. You can say, okay, I have this requirement that's very generic. I want all my walls to be sturdy and usable, right? That's quite free text, and it's very hard to explicitly mention in IDS. But here you can just click on it and you build a tree to show all the walls that are applicable to this requirement. And then you can easily see, does it fulfill the verification? If it does not, etc. All right, that's done. One thing that's quite good is we can also process properties. So I think all of us know that CAD sometimes has an overload of properties. So if you open, let's say, an IFC file, you have a bunch of properties here, right? You don't want all of them. They are made for mostly design, geometric properties. You just want to see the geometry. Maybe you want all of this hidden in the back. It's an information overload that's difficult to manage. So what we can do is we can choose a subset of properties, again, coming from bSDD, and say, okay, I have a height, I have a length, you guys don't see it, but now it's in inches. And we can say in the configuration of fundament, okay, bring me this height, it's called unconnected height, bring me it as bSDD height, and bring it in millimeters. Once I said that, I reprocess the model. It takes a little bit of time. But the point is, if you go back to your model, yeah. If we go back to our model, then we can immediately see these geometric properties, its length, and we have the height here in millimeters with actual millimeter value, right? So you don't even have an obstacle if you're units. Okay, I'll quickly just go through this for the sake of time. So an important thing is we can classify non-IFC elements according to IFC or according to any other classification. Let's say you have actors, people that do some work on some elements, etc. It's very hard to manage these in the IFC. You need to push it to the file, etc. If you follow, let's say, the IFC as the single source of truth way, but here we can just say, okay, I import my actors, my tasks from the bSDD. I import it to fundament. They all appear here. So we have the actors, we have tasks, etc. And then we can import it again through Excel files that we can process easily. And then we can combine a BIM and the alphanumeric data. And now I can simply say, okay, I have something, an actor that's called NANX Technologies. I have task that's wall construction coming from Excel. Let me see all the physical objects in the model that are involved with NANX constructions and with wall construction. NANX Technologies and wall construction, sorry. I can, by having a property in the IFC file, I can take that data to fundament, and then I can build these different trees. So if I want to see all the physical elements that are related with NANX, I click on the top of the tree at NANX and I see all of these objects. And to wrap up, last 2 minutes, we have also a dashboard in the software. So everything, we completely configure it according to your information model. Again, coming from bSDD, you can have different sources of data. Project types are coming from bSDD, actors, solid walls, etc. Then we aggregate the data, process, and then we visualize what data is missing. Your properties, you have everything for length, for height, but maybe you miss postal codes, etc., something like that. Let's say this is a more a take on IDS that's not as rigid as only in the IFC scheme. And we have data exports. In the end, we can send back to IFC if the data fits, but we can export to link data, for example, in JSON files, turtle files, etc. So let's say that's configurable since the graph database is underneath. So what you give it, it's gonna spit out different configurations. Yes, I'm wrapping up. So bridging the gap between project definitions and project data is really crucial in data management. Here at the conference, we've seen a lot how to expand project definitions, how to define better what to build. But how do we actually apply it? We need tools. We need good tools that will help us actually see on each project. Sometimes we don't have the time to wait for the full certification and then to apply it in practice. We need something flexible that we can change a little bit to iterate and then to see what's the best way that we can actually standardize. So software should indeed make the application of standards easier for all stakeholders, and very often now it's a bit of a bottleneck. bSDD is a huge step because it's the source of truth for project definitions. It can make sure that all the tools apply these same project definitions, and it's industry accepted. 27 formally acknowledged integrations. There are informally acknowledged, like the one I have. So there's probably hundreds of these. And to wrap up, it's easy indeed to integrate and use in project context with a bit of programming knowledge. I integrated and I applied it. Publishing is still a bit fairly cumbersome and it's difficult to manage these project definitions. In bSDD, it's only a tool for publishing. And one of the biggest issues I'd say in the schema is that only strictly defined relationships are allowed. And for example, water utilities, etc., that work with this, they have many more: connection to documents, connection to functional breakdowns, etc. So I think bSDD should be expanded to include a possibility to, let's say, define your own relationships, etc. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a question of standardization versus flexibility, but some middle ground needs to be found that will help us and be a little bit less restrictive. Yeah, what we're going to do, integrate the relationship. It's going to actually be part of fundamental web application when my developers get the time. And hopefully with that, the user experience will be enhanced. Yes, thank you for the attention. If any questions before the coffee break are there, let me know. Or we can do it in the coffee break as well.
Thank you very much, Marin, and thank you very much to all of our presenters for this session. And thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the coffee.